Hello! In today's episode of Behind the Dark Veil, we're going to be discussing questions that I was asked about Checkmate Love Game, as well as I will be announcing the winner of the last voting for the next horror story to debut on this channel. But the reveal of the next horror story is not going to be until the end of this video, so you gotta wait for that. Let's get right into it. First, before I go into the Q&A for Checkmate specifically, I'm going to answer 3 questions that I get asked in some form or another pretty much every single time I upload a Behind the Dark Veil video. Am I going to have blah 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 blah, insert story name here, insert project name here, pictures in the background? Currently, no. I do not currently have a way to remove said background anymore. A lot of companies have decided to make it a paid feature, and I don't currently have the specs on my laptop to be able to install something that will allow me to do it on a proper program, and I do not currently have the funds to allocate to paying for something on my phone or whatever to be able to do it either. So currently, no. Blame capitalism. Where is my cup of billionaire blood? Freshly harvested. Just kidding, it's cranberry juice. Where is Dad Revelis? Every time I record one of these videos where Dad Revelis is not in them, I get asked this question. Stop it. Sometimes Dad Revelis will be in them, sometimes he won't be. Do not consider him to be a necessary fixture for these videos, please. I love recording them with Dad Revelis. He's my dad. Of course I love spending time with him, and he's so funny. It's nice to be able to record our antics, but he is not a camera persona. In addition to that, we often lose track of time because we're having such a blast recording them. They take forever to edit because of this, so you can expect them sparingly, not constantly. Thank you. Are Lexomancer and Skyravelis ever going to collab? No. Never. That is fixed. Set in stone. I'm standing by that. Lexomancer and Skyravelis are 2 entirely different brands. If you like to learn about foreign languages and how to effectively learn them, as well as the quirks of language, that is what Lexomancer is for. Yes, I am the face of both. I speak 10 plus languages, depending on how you want to count or whatever. But Lexomancer is much more accessible, so to speak. It is not horror stories. It is not gruesome stuff happening in it. Like, a child could watch a Lexomancer video and potentially learn something from it. Like, that is not the nature of Skyravelis. Skyravelis is a mature, rated R brand. Lexomancer is usually like PG, maybe sometimes PG-13, depending on what I'm talking about, because language can get dark and mature in nature, but even so, like, it never goes past PG-13, so these 2 can never collaborate, ever. It's not gonna happen. Sorry. On to the Q&A for Checkmate specifically, though. Does Checkmate take place in the past, present, or future? The answer to this is it takes place in the past. Checkmate, the whole saga, is basically an origin story for these characters, which are crucial in upcoming stories in all of the playlists, because like I said, everything connects. Does it take place in another universe? That is a wonderful question. No. Even though they are humanoid and they don't seem like they should be human, the Checkmate curse, or the curse of Checkmate, however you want to phrase it, is the reason they look the way they do. Did both sides ever get along? And if so, will we find that out? To the first question, I'm not going to answer that, because that's a really pivotal part of the story and it's fascinating and I worked hard on it. But the second part of that question, you will find out the history of these 2 kingdoms, their animosity, where they ever friends, etc., later on in the story, not in book 1. What started the feud, if they did ever get along, or what made it so they just hated each other all along? Again, this will be discussed in bits and pieces. You might see a little bit of it in book 1, but it's going to be really gone into in future books. Like, I think it really starts being discussed, I believe, in the 2nd arc, which I'll explain what that is in this video. Are there black and white horses? And if so, do they hate each other too? There are black and white horses in like the natural way, like some horses have white fur, some horses have black fur, but they are not like chess pieces, like these humans who were cursed by the curse of Checkmate. So No, the animals were not affected by the curse. Or should I say the horses, at least, were not affected by the curse. And where was I going with that? My brain just hit itself. Well, some horses might hate each other, who knows? I'm not gonna say that I know how a horse thinks. Nay. Alright, I'll see myself out. Are there other kinds of animals there? Yes. And I did specify that the horses were not affected by the curse of Checkmate. There may or may not be animals who were, and you'll find out if that's the case later on in time. Naturally, there are also animals that serve as food. Like, these characters are not vegetarian. They don't filter feed. They don't photosynthesize. So there are animals that are going to be eaten, and there are also beasts of burden and potentially domestic animals, etc., and you'll learn about that later as well. Are there monsters? Of course. Look at me. Everything that I've put up so far. My brand. The stories that I've created. Crimson. All these different villains that I've introduced. The cultists, these demonic supernatural rituals. And you think there might not be monsters? Of course there's monsters! Why wouldn't there be? Who are you talking to? Come on now. Can the kingdoms reproduce with one another? Yes, I repeat, they are both human. And this person who asked this question was also curious if one was a more dominant trait. For example, when humans in general reproduce, there are certain traits that are more dominant. Brown eyes versus blue eyes, lighter skin versus darker skin, darker hair versus lighter hair, etc., etc. Dominant and recessive genes. The answer to that question is no. It's pretty much up in the air, whichever happens. If a lighten were to sleep with a darken, whether or not the children would look more darken or lighten would pretty much be up to chance. But these are human creatures, remember. Like, they're humanoid now because they don't resemble it, but they were cursed. And this is a blood curse. So hypothetically speaking, you could sleep with a darken or a lighten, or both potentially. But blood curse. You'd get infected and you would look either lighten or darken as a result, depending on whoever you slept with. Where did this whole idea come from? Good question. I love this question. So one of my favorite series, well, one of my favorite concepts, I should say. I'm pretty sure it's public domain now. Yes, it is. I don't know how to phrase it, but anyway, I love Alice. Alice is amazing to me. And one of my favorite adaptations is American McGee's Alice, my favorite being The Madness Returns. So that aesthetic, that dark, gothic, that nature of that series really inspired me in several ways. And the parts where you're on a chessboard really got my brain going. And that's how I first started thinking about this first arc, the chess arc of Checkmate. Future arcs were inspired by different things as well. For example, EA. I hate that goddamn company. They didn't greenlight Asylum. They've been constantly fucking up the quality of games that they've been releasing. I'm not the only one that's pissed off about it. But my rage towards that company, as an anonymous entity for legal reasons, I'm not actually legitimately angry or whatever, but my frustrations are in artistic form in this series. To be even more specific though, aside from being inspired by Alice and inspired by chess, I was looking at a chessboard because it's a fun game to play from time to time. And I was thinking to myself, I really like this aesthetic. I would love to design some characters that looked like chess pieces. For what reason would I have to do that? How could I integrate that into my cosmic universe that I've said everything works and intertwines with everything? How about a curse? Have curses in other stories, I could easily integrate that. That works. But were they human before? Of course, turn them into chess pieces. But how does this tie into reality? Make it so that these characters became what they became, and then the legend of what happened during their time dealing with the curse of Checkmate is what inspired the game of chess. How did I come up with character names? How do I ever come up with character names? Basically, I designed some characters that just have generic names so that if you're paying attention to name meanings, some characters are designed to throw you off. Other characters, their name is important to their personality or potentially to their fate. How I come up with names varies. In the context of Checkmate, Darkins have names inspired by things that are dark, or things that are dark adjacent, like night, etc., etc. Lightens have names that are inspired by light, or things that are light adjacent, day, etc., etc. If this is the chess arc, what are the other arcs? There are 4 arcs. There is the chess arc. Well, let me backtrack for a second. Each arc has 4 books. 4 arcs, 4 books, totaling to 16 books in total. I repeat, this is a saga, an epic saga. The chess arc is the first arc. The second arc is the death arc. I'm going to give you no details about that whatsoever, but the second arc is the death arc. The third arc is the red arc. Again, you get no details, but you now know a huge inspiration was Alice the Madness Returns, so you might be able to figure something out. And the fourth arc is the Afterlife arc. Again, you get no details about that whatsoever. When can we expect Chapter 2? Oof. Chapter 2 is going to be coming out sooner than later. Keep in mind that it takes time to produce these. Checkmate has been the most involved project I have debuted so far on my channel, and it's probably only going to keep getting more and more involved. The hope is as this channel grows, as I start to get funds, as I am able to grow my team, so to speak, the hope is that it's going to get easier. But at least at the start, I'm on my own. It's all me. So I will try to work as fast as I can within reason, not rushing myself and affecting the quality of the product, but you know, I'll do the best I can. It's going to show up sooner than later, and it will show up this coming year. We are almost at the end of 2024. It's not going to debut in 2024, but I will try to have it up at the beginning or near the beginning of 2025. Is Chapter 2 also sad? No. As a writer, I believe that a story needs to have its wins and its losses. Otherwise, it's just, why am I reading this? I'm not a masochist. I don't want to feel a sort of commiseration. I don't need to suffer along with these fictional characters. So if something really tragic happens, then chances are something really good is going to happen following it, or something to juxtapose it if it's not completely good. You know, I just feel like there have to be wins. I feel like there have to be wins and losses. Otherwise, like, what's the point? But I digress. Chapter 2 is actually happy. The way that it ends will have you feeling probably the exact opposite of how you felt at the end of Chapter 1. And I feel like a lot of people will go back and they'll watch Chapter 1 and they'll instead prefer to end on Chapter 2 because it's more of a feel-good type of chapter. How many books are in Checkmate and what are their tentative names? Alright, I said tentative just in case future me wants to change this. I'm not set in stone and I'm not held in chains or whatever, but here are the tentative names that I'm thinking for all 16 books of Checkmate. So obviously it's going to be Checkmate, colon, and then name. So I'm just going to read the names and you'll see them on the screen to make it easier. Love Game, Usurper, Distortion, War, Fallen, Forgotten, Forsaken, Condemned, The Vermilion Court, The Scarlet Infection, The Crimson Lullaby, Purge of the Red, Decay, In Limbo, From Hell, Infernal Divine. I will be answering no questions about those names whatsoever. You'll find out what they are when I get to them. Keep in mind this is a long series. This is a saga that I'm planning to last a good while on my channel, and each book is going to have sub-requirements to unlock it, because the further we get down the saga, the more involved it's going to be for me, so I want people to actually see it if I'm putting all the effort into it. And probably, fingers crossed, by the end of this saga, I will have a team. I will potentially have people working with me to produce this series, so we'll see. Are you planning on adding more animation as the series goes on? Yes. I do not currently have proper animation programs, because animation programs, if you do animation, you know what I'm about to say before I say it, they take a lot of computer power. I have basically what can be considered a clunker. I need to get a new laptop at some point. Later on in time, I will probably invest in a proper production machine type of laptop. But for now, I don't have the proper stuff to do legitimate animation. So the stuff that I've done that is animation has been done in an unorthodox way. A lot of drawing programs, digital art drawing programs, have the option to go into animation mode. But it is not ideal, it is not good for super complex projects. It is good for little dinky animation. It is good for tiny little illustrations that you want animated here and there, but like a full out thing, no. I made a visualizer for the release of the OST for Chapter 1, and that took at least 27 drawings, probably double that if I wanted it to run more smoothly. So keep that in perspective. Will I ever have other voice actors? Potentially. A lot of it's still probably going to be done by me because I love voice acting, but I have some friends who also like voice acting. I might consider having auditions in the distant or near distant future, for being optimistic, for voice actors for certain roles. Who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, but maybe. Will I ever release the OSTs on music streaming platforms? Yes. I plan on releasing them on music streaming platforms in the future. It is going to happen, it's a matter of when, not if. For book 1 of Checkmate, I'm thinking that I'm going to wait until book 1 is done, and I'm going to release it entirely as basically an album, so to speak. Whereas other stories, other songs, I might release as singles, who knows. You have to pay in order to be able to... You have to pay to access a music distributor. So, again, that costs money. I don't have very many funds to allocate towards creative projects right now. But that is one that I will be prioritizing, especially once book 1 of Checkmate is done. So yes, it is just a question of when. Someone asked me, is this project really only done by me? Yes, 100%. I'm doing all the voice acting. Even when you hear a voice that sounds different than my standard voices that I've been doing for that scene, etc., it's me. I have a lot of range vocally. Anytime you hear singing in the background, it's me. Anytime you hear music composed for this series, it is me. I'm playing the piano, I'm using virtual instruments, I am editing it myself, I'm doing the mixing, I'm doing the mastering. Sometimes I can ask some of my friends who also make music for some help, but it's me. I'm doing the animation, I'm doing the drawings, everything is me. It's a one-person show for now. I am Checkmate. But now for the moment you've been waiting for. I hope that you've enjoyed the Q&A section as well. The winner of the next horror story to debut on this channel is... In His Eyes! Yes, I tallied the votes, and that was the winner. I'm very excited to debut that one. It's gonna be fun. I don't have help for Checkmate, but a friend of mine who I will credit however she chooses to be credited in the future, she's still thinking that over, is helping me with the storyboarding of the stories that use photography as opposed to illustration. In His Eyes utilizes photography so I can get some help with the storyboarding, which means I can probably get it out to you even sooner than if I was doing it all on my own. But with that being said, that will be debuting soon-ish, probably shortly before Chapter 2 of Checkmate Love Game. I kind of like, if I can, I don't stay too strictly to it, but if I can, I like to do horror, not horror, horror, not horror, horror, not horror, horror, not horror. That's my preference. So yes, it will be debuting soon-ish. My friend is starting the storyboarding this coming Tuesday, actually. We'll be having like a conference call, so to speak, ending and just team gossip and just shooting the shit and having conversations like best friends, because that's what we are. But yeah, that starts this coming Tuesday. As for when it's released, we'll find out. But sooner than later, I promise. In his eyes, it was just one. If you were sad that yours didn't win, don't worry. I am treating the poll, the voting poll, as an order of release. So first is going to be In His Eyes because it was the winner. In second place, so it's going to release after that one, is The Realm of Phobia's The Vengeful Nine. And then in third place, Sliced Awakening. So that one will release after that one. And then after that one will release fourth place, Howard Bound. So if yours did not win, don't worry, it's a matter of when it's getting released, not if. These aren't just disappearing into the aether because they didn't win. They are going to be released at some point. They are all integral to the plot that I have going on. My literary cosmos, all of them are necessary, so they're not going anywhere. It's just a matter of... I already said, I'm going to repeat myself again. I have one more thing coming up that I promised. The next video going up is going to be about a new villain that I've designed. So stay tuned for that. And after that, I'm not making any more promises about the types of videos that I'm putting up so that I can put out some stuff and get myself ahead of schedule, because right now I'm feeling overwhelmed. But it's a fun overwhelmed. See you then. Subscribe if you haven't. Like this video. You know, do the things. Toodles.